Hello and welcome. In today's exciting episode, I mash up two different vintage Vogue patterns to make this delightful vintage dress out of holly fabric with metallic gold highlights.
It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket.
So a while back at one of the sales, I bought several vintage Vogue patterns. This one for shirts from the 1960s and this pattern from the 1950s. And I already made the flamenco dress out of that pattern, the dress pattern. But yeah, I love the skirt, but the bodice not so much. So I thought in this one I'd use that 1960s vintage Vogue bodice. Well, it's a top, and I'd sort of tweak it a little to make it into the bodice. So yeah, here we have, I've cut out the bits and I'm just sort of winging it because I'm trying to get a lot of dresses made in a short amount of time. So I sort of just do it on the go. So I after I cut out all the pieces, I pinned them together at the sides, and so it's the bodice is a center front piece cut on the fold and two side front pieces, and the back is the same. It's a center back with two side princess seams going into the arms. And yeah, and so I pinned everything together, sewed it, pressed it all, because when you're doing princess seams, it is important that the seam allowance lays flat. And I personally think it lays better if you keep it long, the seam allowance long at full length. I know it's fashionable to do the fast fashion thing and have the smallest possible seam allowance, but it's more couture to have a wide seam allowance, and also it's just better, you know, if you change shape over the decades and then once you pass away or you pass on the dress then to the next person, they can alter it. Yeah, so it's just more luxurious, and you can see it even if the people looking at the dress, the outer side of the garment, can't tell why it seems more luxurious. It's yeah, you can really see it. So yeah, I leave it in, and then so the next thing was to pin the sides together and sew them. But when I did, yeah, it's actually really baggy. Well, not really baggy, but a top is much less form-fitting than the top of a dress, because a bodice has all the weight of a full skirt to sort of keep it down, and you basically just zip yourself in. So yeah, I'd sort of altered it as I was drafting the pattern. So I made it quite a bit shorter, and I felt like I used the right size. But yeah, going forward, I think I'll use a smaller size because yeah, the proportions are good, but yeah, I think tighter is better with a bodice, just with a bodice that has such a full skirt. So yeah, I was going to just alter every single, because it's princess seam, I was going to alter every single seam, like rip the seams and sort of alter them all. And then I was like, actually, because the scoop neck is a little wider than I would like. So yeah, I was like, what if I just pinch out an inch in the middle? And yeah, I love this neckline so much more. So yeah, that's what I did. And I'm just going to, and I just pinched it there at the back, because it's got, when you're a smaller size, your shoulder blades are almost as big as your bust. So it's important that you have room for your shoulder blades. And also, especially for smaller sizes, you do not want a center back seam. It just, on your spine, it's just wrong. You need to have buffer of, you know, yeah, it's just on a bony spine, you do not want a back seam. So yeah, on the back, I'm putting more I'm altering it at the princess seams, and on the front I'm just putting a pleat in the front. So, well, basically I'm just sewing in a line down the middle, and then I'm opening it out into a pleat, and then obviously in the lining I'll cut that instead of turning it into a pleat and lay those seam allowances flat. So yeah, and I also need to shorten it a bit, about an inch or so, inch and a half. So yeah, it does sound like I'm making it super short, but you've got to factor in the weight of a skirt that is almost a whole 4 yards of fabric. So yeah, this cutting out this bodice did not take much fabric at all. So the skirt is almost still the full 4 yards of fabric. So I've put pins in, and I know where I want to alter, and I know how I want to alter it. So, and there's a little bit at the top. It sort of may look like I'm trying to make a hunchback, but all I'm doing is making sure there's still room for shoulder blades. And you alter small sizes in a different way than than mediums and larges, just because body fat accumulates in different ways. But anyway, so yeah, so it's right for the particular size. So yeah, at this point I was like, oh, this is a lot of work altering a bodice. Should I just, because I also think it would be cool to make the top like a two-part dress. So make the top in like a full length top, full size, so it's a little bit baggy, and also make the skirt just independently. So I was like, oh, should I just get out some other fabric and do that? And then I was like, no, I'll just keep going with this one and finish this. So I made the alterations. I just sewed here, this is the front, and I've just sewed like an inch in, and then I flattened it and made it into a pleat. And then on the back I added just increase the depth of the seam allowance on the princess seams. They're like I doubled it at the bottom, and then to the first notch, from the first notch to the armhole, I sort of eased it out to just over, a little bit less. But my alterations aren't going to be the same as the ones you make anyway. So, but yeah, that's what I did. And then I tried it on the form again, and I'm really happy with it. The problem, it could go thinner, you could do it smaller, but the problem is if a bodice is too fitted, then how do you get it off and on? So yeah, I sort of have to strike a balance, and I think this is it. So I also sewed a sew line around the bottom of the bodice, and yeah, I'm happy with where it is, and I'm so much happy with this neckline. I just think it's so pretty, and yeah, it's a happy accident, but I'm really, really happy with it. So because I have quite small shoulders, so yeah, they were going to be a little bit too balanced on the edge of my shoulders, the straps, but that's very 1950s, so 1960s, so I wasn't, but I prefer this. So then I made all the alterations that I made to the outer bodice. I did the same ones on the lining. I know you should do it in the opposite order, and you should do all your experimenting on the bodice or just a total mock-up, but this is the way I do it. If I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to make it. So the next thing, once that was done, the next thing is to pin the lining to the outer bodice, and just around the neckline at the front, the neckline at the back, and the sleeves, the armholes. And I've left the shoulders open because you need those open to turn everything through. But yeah, and as I said, I didn't do a pleat on the lining front. I opened it out, I cut it, and then flattened out the seams just so that it will sit nicer once it's on the body. And then once everything was pinned, then I machine sewed. Then of course I had to clip the curves, and then I turned it out, and then I sort of pinned everything into place. And then it was time to finally machine sew the shoulders together. So you sort of have to very carefully tuck the lining pieces out of the way so that you can machine sew the outer of the back and the front for the shoulders. And then you can't do the lining bit by machine. You have to sort of pin it into place and then hand stitch it. And at the same time, I'm just going to hand stitch the lining to the outer bodice right around the neckline and right around the here I'm showing you the tiny little box pleat at the back. It is so cute. And I did an inverted box pleat. I think you could do a box pleat, but I think an inverted one's better just because, yeah, I think I might make a bolero to go with this. And yeah, this one will just sit better. And yeah, all the seams are sitting nicely. So yeah, now all I have to do is do loads of hand stitching. So I'll go watch some episodes of a TV show and do that. All the hand sewing has been done around the neckline and the sleeve, armholes. And it's looking it's looking a little bit rushed, but yeah, it looks beautiful from the outside, and everything is in place. So that's basically all you have to do. And I went ahead and added some beading to the pleat because I was going to have to either just press down the pleat and just tack it, keep it in place with a few stitches, or I could make you could do a few invisible stitches, or you could do loads of beading. So I had lots of different beads to choose from, but I went with the seed beads because, I don't know, they're a little bit bling, but I can still hand wash the garment. It's not turning it into a dry clean one. So yeah, I was happy with that balance. It's a little bit bling, but not so much that it's going to cost me a fortune over the next, decade or so. So now the bodice was pretty much done, but at the bottom of the bodice, when I was doing the fitting, all I did was do a sew line to mark where the seam between the skirt and the bodice is going to go. So I had to trim down the excess and make an even bottom of the bodice so that I could, I could pin the skirt to it. And then I did pin the skirt the usual way. You just pin the sides, and then you pin the center, and then you go where the quarter mark is, and then you can either gather it or you can do the half and half method to get your pleats. And then I boxed mine. I did every second box pleat and then went back around and did every other one. And once it was done, then I machine sewed it, and I went round twice to reinforce it because it's a heavy skirt. And then the next thing is it needs an internal belt, so you have to sew that on. It's just the salvage cut off a piece of fabric, and you sew that on, and then you have to stitch on a hook on the inside, and that way, and you just have to pin it on at that point. And then I pinned down the lining and I sewed that down, and here we have it. Ta-da! It's so cute. Obviously you have to put in a zip as well, but I didn't have a zip in the right color, so it's not done yet. Shh, don't tell anyone. But so here it is, and I've got the flamenco one just beside it, and I love this dress. I love it so much. It is a much better shape than the flamenco one, so I think I might redo the bodice of the flamenco one. Maybe. It's got flamingos and shrimps and hearts and palms on it, so it would be very hard to sort of cut around them, but I think I might. Yeah, the flamenco one's okay, but this one is just adorable and so much more comfortable. And yeah, it is worth all the time that it takes to properly fit a bodice, because you just end up with something so much better. But I mean, the other one's lovely too, and they both got the gorgeous full skirt. Oh, speaking of full skirt, oh, this is what it looks like without the belt. I really like it better with a belt because it's such a heavy skirt. I do think you need a belt to sort of cinch it in, but it looks quite nice without one too. I think this would look absolutely beautiful with a dark green belt and a dark green or black jacket or cape. It would just look so gorgeous. But yeah, at the moment the skirt of this is basically down to the floor. I've left it long. I haven't hemmed it yet. Normally what you would do if you want to look very 50s is to do a double, like turn it over twice, about 6 inches each time or a little more. But I like it long. Or what I could do is cut off the bottom 11 or 12 inches and use that to make a matching bolero jacket. So I might wear it like this for this season, and then maybe next year I'll cut off the bottom, because it's like 4 yards, almost 4 yards, and at like 11 inches, that's enough to make a bolero. As long as it's like 3/4 sleeve and very cropped in a small size, I reckon I can squeeze it out. I'm pretty good at making a tiny jacket out of a small amount of fabric. That's kind of my thing. So I think I can do that. And I love this beading. It is just adorable. It's a little bit bling without being too much. And yeah, and I put the gingerbread jacket on it. Those sleeves are just ridiculous. They make me look like an ornament, a Christmas tree ornament or something like that. It's beautiful, but yeah, it's definitely a statement. I don't think I'll wear them together. It's a bit too much for statement. I think the gingerbread jacket looks better just with plain jeans myself, just because I like to dress everything down. But there you go. I made my vintage Vogue dress out of 2 vintage Vogue patterns, and I'm very happy with it. I think I'll do another version using the same 2 patterns, but as a 2-part dress. So I'll do the top as just a full length, normal length top, and with as much ease as the top has in the pattern. And then the skirt will sort of rest on my hips rather than in the dress. It's hiked up to your natural waist. But yeah, so they will be very different even though I use the same base patterns. But that'll be in a couple of episodes. The next one is going to be a red dress, and it's going to use different patterns. But yeah, I'm so happy with this dress. It's really, yeah. Once I figured out that the bodice needed so many alterations, I was like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. But I'm very happy with the results. So thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you again for this series of vintage dresses made out of gorgeous Christmas fabrics.